You getting feedback?
Nope. Go ahead.
Okay. Met on the platform of other live streaming, you see stuff that is dangerous and you watch it. Don't just be an observer. Swipe up and share. Share it out at this hashtag. It is Amanda. Share this out on Periscope. Share it out on Twitter. These activities, we address them here at Parent Dome. So good evening. My name is Ryan Miller. I'm the founder of Parent Dome, and I've got a multicast going on. I've got an audience of Periscope going over here. I have a Blab session happening at blab.im. So I invite those people that want a more interactive experience. You have two options. You can stay here in Periscope. You can go over to blab.im. But if you want to watch it on a big screen and be able to interact that way, you can go to Nissan Communications, and that's also on Roku. And this is an interactive discussion. I interact with my Periscope audience, the Blab audience, in addition to the chat role on Nissan Communications. For those that are watching at Nissan, you can call in at 919-518-9773, or you can join in via Skype at Computers 2K Voice. For those people in Blab that are listening to this broadcast and you have questions, you can put them. Yes, you can call in at 919-518-9773. That gets you into speak to Amnon, and he will put you in touch with me. Blab, you can put those questions in on the chat roll, and Amnon Nissan will in turn forward them to me as well, or put you live on the seat, depending upon who you are. So, good evening, everybody. Been a very active week. So I kind of want to do a quick run through of some of the big events that happened this week. So, but I just did want to call attention to something that was stated early on in the broadcast. And this is a new viewer to mine, so it's important that I do address it. Behind me, I have this hashtag that says Black Lives Matter. It's difficult to see at Nissan, but it does say Black Lives Matter. And what that means in the live streaming platform, that broadcasters have the ability, when they have disruptive behavior, to take that behavior and remove it from the broadcast, executing what is called a block, meaning I, as a broadcaster, have the ability to push a button, take that person and remove them from the broadcast. As this broadcaster, when I terminate those people from my broadcast, I let them know they're just simply in violation of my terms of service. The terms of service in which I have available for people to download and listen to, that I'm not dismissing of those lives, that those lives mean something to me. And I interact with them because behind my curtain is a whole inventory of people that have been disruptive during my broadcasts. But as in the beginning of my song, I am consistent with my messaging that I speak life, love, and hope. And even those that are disruptive, vulgar, profane, mean, divisive, cause threats, all of that behavior doesn't affect me. It may affect some other people, but those words don't have power over me. But I go and I take those people and I let them know according to the terms of service that I hold them accountable to their character that they represent in this broadcast. So somebody said all lives matter, and I totally agree with that. All lives do matter. This is just me drawing attention to when people receive a block from me in a broadcast, your life matters to me as well. You are not going into this data abyss of anonymity. That you are there, but in my broadcast, you are not ignored. I will approach you. Other people, they handle it a different way. I'm not to judge their behavior. I just control the ethic and the morality of my broadcast. This is consistent with the way I operate on Blab and any social media platform, that I cannot, that disruptive behavior is coming from what I call unidentified pain. But I've done this message before, I don't want to repeat. I don't want to say your name, unfortunately, because it's a little too terse for my audience. So I don't know how to address you. If you could send me your name directly so I can address you personally, that would be very helpful. I will answer that question for you. Somebody asked me, how many people have I blocked? And I will say, I have blocked more people than I have people that follow me. I can call you hard, all right? I'll call you hard. Oh, I've seen you before. Yes, I have. I recognize the logo. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go fast, rewind back into Monday. Monday was in the hashtag of the broadcast, hashtag SID, which stands for Safe Internet Day 2016. On that day, all across the world, schools, safe social media experts, people that have a passion about children, were using various platforms to draw awareness about being safe on the internet. And I was jumping around from time zone to time zone, participating and listening to the various different forms of communication that was happening on Twitter chats. And I'm sorry, somebody just has to report a cyberbully. You take the broadcast and you share it to this hashtag. Or if you have a Twitter address, you send it to that hashtag. That hashtag, I am managing the inappropriate behavior that is happening online. So I was going over all these different forms of communication on Safe Internet Day, and there was a constant theme that I was able to pull out through all of this communication. And the communication was in the domain which I call awareness. I talk about awareness, oversight, and controls, about keeping kids safe in a digitally immersed life from the dangers, risks, threats, and permanence. Everybody's heard that over and over again. It's like a skip on a record. But in the awareness side, Andrew Page is back, there were people all talking about this app, this social media platform, the dangers of location settings, this social media experience. And they were talking about all these different areas that kids happen to go and experience this bidirectional immersed digital experience, which I thought was fabulous because I heard people talking about all these different platforms and different applications. Some of them went a little bit deeper, that they talked about ghost apps or hidden apps, which was really cool, all in the awareness domain. So after I listened to a bunch of those, I thought, you know, I'm really thankful that this audience is doing this, but I'm going to bring my passion right to the forefront. And on Monday, I decided to support everybody in the awareness, but I was going to go down the rabbit hole of oversight. Now, I am not going to dive into my discussion on oversight tonight, because it is a very sensitive issue and it's a very appropriate issue, but there is so much, what I should say, apology in advance type of conversation. I don't have people having an emotional reaction to my words. That's going to happen in my next element, but the first element, I would invite people that if they're interested in experiencing what I talked about, the power of oversight, it's about an hour-long broadcast, and I dive into the most critical aspect of the relationship between the parent, the technology, and putting it into the child's hands. And I do it in a very loving way, non-judgmental way, and I encourage those that if people have any desire to go into this next step of what keeping your kids safe on the internet is, that would be my number one recommendation, is to listen to that broadcast. So if there's any way that you want to communicate with me, I'm going to put up my email address here because this is a great way to get in touch with me. It's at technoevanguy@gmail. I'm going to move it in front of both screens so people can see it. J4 from New York. Oops, I'm not sure I'm going to get this one here. Get the line. technoevanguy@gmail.com. Sorry, I'm blocking my Periscope audience there. You can communicate with me there. If you're on Periscope and you want a copy of that broadcast, you just type in the number 1 and I will send you a link to the replay of that broadcast. If you have access to Twitter, you can tweet me at parent_dome, that I will be able to send that broadcast to you at a replay as well. I've also opened up a new feature on my website, and that is access to what I'm going to be doing, a daily newsletter. The daily newsletter, all you have to do is go into parentdome.com. Let me show this up here, at parentdome.com, and there's just a little sign up for the newsletter. All I need is your email address, and you can cancel out of that at any time. But what I'll do after every day that I broadcast, which I do about 3 broadcasts a day, sometimes 4, that I will put a replay of those broadcasts available to you. You can watch them at your leisure. When they're on replay, you can fast forward through them too, which is a nice feature. So if I am stuck in a conversation with somebody that is being disruptive, you can fast forward through that. Last week I did have that encounter, and I want everybody to understand, because those people are important to me, they are somebody's children that is acting out in pain, I don't immediately dismiss them. I give them the ability to kind of make a different decision. But I don't immediately dismiss disruptive behavior. So that newsletter, you can sign in with an email that will come out at the conclusion of every day when I've done all of my broadcasts, and it will make references to lessons that I speak about inside of parentdome.com. So if there's anybody that wants to communicate, you can ask me questions on Periscope. I think I've gotten those that have come up so far. Over on Nissan, you can call in at 919-518-9773, or at Computers 2K Voice, and on Blab, you can just type them in the chat roll. So now I'm going to get into the next topic, which is I have identified as evidence and symptoms. And it just so happens I was talking about these the other day, and it happened today. I was called into a crisis situation. So I'm going to talk ahead about the evidence. So the symptoms one is going to be a little bit more difficult for me to go down that path. That's why I'm starting with the evidence. This afternoon, I was called into a family's house that the family had the ability to sit in one of my presentations. They were in a parent-teacher type of parent-student presentation in front of a school audience, and they heard my hour and some long message that I go through. And at the end of those messages, I give an invitation to those people that would want to gain more information or to be part of the Parent Dome family. I extend an invitation to them, and for their participation, I give them a discount. So normally I get some people that subscribe to that. This family did not choose to do that. So by being here is an indication that people have a desire for an enhanced level of proactive involvement in their child's internet safety. That's not meant to be judgmental or anything dismissive. It's just saying I have a tremendous amount of material for those that want to take an additional step in being proactive. These parents took that step. This particular family did not. Their child made a poor choice in school and got caught, and the school had now held the parents accountable. Did not involve the law, was not illegal, absolutely inappropriate, but was not illegal. And the parents were not aware to the depth of their child's internet immersion, which came as a complete shock to me, because when I went to the family's house and I started having a none of that stuff, but they did say in an abstract, I can speak to this topic. So I wanted to clear that off. The young man who is in the high school, in the high school years, has a learning disability. I would not be skilled to diagnose it, but if I were, I would say it was not in the autism, but it was more in the Asperger's range. He was a little bit of socially uncomfortable, very, very bright, but had some other awkward features about him, which made his high school experience a little bit challenging for him. But he was very much committed to a life immersed in technology. Now, the parents took me up into this child's bedroom. Now, I want to paint a picture here. This is a family of financial means. They have a very, very beautiful, lovely home with a very multi-car garage. And they come from what in our area is referred to old money, industrial revolution type of money that's been passed down generations. So, and this is also a family that is very well known in society's social register. So they are a visible family, and the husband and wife like to maintain that outward visibility, going to the dances and the balls and the charity fundraisers and such. And in the family home, there's not really a caretaker because the parents are out doing it. The two children, there's a son and a daughter, are kind of at their own. So I walked into the child's bedroom, and I felt like I was walking into a high-end video production studio, complete with multiple desktops, multiple flat panel screens, a very large 60-inch high definition 4K type of flat panel screen, video mixing board, Avid software, which is not something you would typically see in a teenager's room. But in addition to that, I saw a stack of terabit hard drives. I don't know if people have any idea, but yes, video content takes up a fair amount of storage space. But having multiples of terabit drives is saying that you have got a serious video attraction. Come to learn that this child is very active on multiple social media platforms and enjoys capturing video content from multiple platforms, such as Meerkat, Periscope, Blab, YouTube, YouNow, Skype, ooVoo, Google Hangouts, and the list goes on and on. Now, the only reason I know this is because the parents had opened it up that I could look through this child's directory to view what kind of content they had. And the parents weren't aware of how all of this technology went together. They just bought this child's software, they bought them hardware, they didn't know what it did, they didn't know where it worked. So there was a pause in the conversation. And I said to them, when I was digging down, I said, I am very curious. Could you guys kind of put a number for me, just so I have a handle on it, how much you pay per month just for your child's internet data storage and or download capacity? Because I do know that with my cell plan, they happen to be on the same type of cell plan service with Verizon, that we have a limit as to how much bandwidth we have in up and downloads of data. 8 gigabytes. I share that 8 gigabytes amongst my family. When you go above that, you pay premiums. And as you get a higher and higher and higher, the fee goes higher and higher. So that I knew was one fee that I would expect that they would be able to tell me how much that cost. But there's other things. He had native storage in his terabit drives, but I was curious if he had external storage in which he was paying for, such as hosted solutions or Dropbox or premium services available on iCloud. And the husband went away and he came back. And I asked people on Periscope if they had an idea as to how much do they think was, Mark, good to see you. What did they think would be a normal rate that somebody would pay for downloading a lot of video? This child was consuming and downloading and uploading and saving and storing at the rate of $400 a month just in his data storage and his data plan. That's an incredible amount of money for a teen child. The parents just paid that bill. They didn't know what was going on with that bill. They just paid that bill. It just was going into their normal weekly, monthly expenses. No being on the radar. Took me back and I was like, holy smokes. So I guess no matter if your child's right, $5,000 a year just for the data pathway. Somebody was quick to do the math. 4 times 12 is $4,800. But that doesn't include how much money they've spent in equipping their child with the technology, the screens, the video software. The Avid software is not cheap. The video mixing. So I took the next step and I started going through the child's directories. The parents had given me authority to do that. They'd gotten access. I'll get to that in a second. I've gotten access to look at these directories. And this child was very meticulous and to the point of anal retentive. Yes, he could have, JF. He totally could have run his own business on the dark web. Correct. And honestly, that was a concern, but I chose not to go to that level because I unplugged from the conversation soon after I discovered his library was very, very intricate. To the file structure is very, very defined, and based upon categories, based upon genres, and it just went a little off. But when I just started treeing off in the directories, I started, and each of them have several gigabits of videos inside of them in MP4s or various video formats. And I was looking in there and I said, this is stuff that I don't want to see. I don't want to click on that link because I don't want to see it based upon what the file title is and what the video title is. I don't want to see it. So I went to the parents and I said, you've got a big problem. You had a way of managing this proactively. Now we're at the stage of reactive. Well, unfortunately, the parents' reaction to this, when the school notified them, and they started sniffing that something was bad, their reaction, remember we got the laissez-faire and the helicopter parent? Well, the laissez-faire parent went smacked all the way to the other extreme. I mean, they were totally laissez-faire. They just kept feeding him what he needed to keep him quiet. They were separate. Everything was in this child's bedroom and there was no visibility into this child's bedroom. All the activity and the electronics that were sucking up the bill there, they had no visibility in. All of a sudden something comes in and they're shocked because it was way inappropriate, not illegal, inappropriate, even according to their own definition. Their response was, shut it down. Pretty much pull the plug out of the wall. Now this child, who is his almost entire life is consumed by this activity. Yes, he's in school and he's interacting with the school, but after school hours, he is 100% committed to this activity on the internet. He is basically a guy living amongst screens, doing what he's doing with multiple keyboards and multiple mice and managing what he's managing. And they decided to pull the plug on him and he is reacting. He is reacting physically, verbally, emotionally. He's out of control. And I get why he's out of control, but I think there's some other things that are attached to that that makes it even worse, as I'm thinking in the diagnosis domain. But the parents now are dealing with this blowback through therapy and psychiatric services. And they're trying to understand how do they manage their child with the internet, having unplugged them, and how do they take control of this new internet experience. To them, it's not new to their son, it's new to them. And there's lots of friction between the parent and the child. Now, I had said to them that you have got, I'm not the therapist here. You're going to have in-depth conversations with your therapist and your psychiatrist as to what you do in this situation, because you have got an unfathomable amount of stuff that your son has created over who knows how long. I have no idea how long he's done it, but he's got terabit upon terabit upon terabit upon terabit of data. He's got as much stuff as would be in a production studio. Truly, I mean, a national broadcast TV studio would be the same kind of volume that this young man has. I said, you're going to have to come to the terms with what your psychiatrist and what your therapist say to do with all of this data. Because I don't know what portion of it is downloading his video game activities, or what of it is his trolling on other people's. How much of it was related to the extortion activities that he was, it was password protected, but the dad was able to get the password. Somebody asked if it was password protected, but the dad, based upon that friction, was able to wrestle the password out of the kid. That was another part of the friction. But I'm sitting here saying, you didn't take the proactive approach. We're in the reactive mode now. You've got tons of stuff out here that has gone unsupervised with zero oversight for how long? And you don't know what the damage is, and you don't know what the permanence is. So I'm saying, in my standard metaphor, the toothpaste is out of the tube. It is out. And you can cut the top of the toothpaste off, and you can try to wipe away all that stuff that's out there. So all this stuff that is in your physical custody, the stuff that is up on the cloud that is saved, the stuff that's up on iCloud and in Dropbox, and these terabytes of data, take them out into your driveway, take your beautiful Land Cruiser and drive over that stuff. Be done with it. And then start on a new relationship with your child that is based upon a parental relationship that is appropriate for his involvement. But you got to wrestle that with the therapist and the psychiatrist, because who knows what this kid could do at this point, because you have basically disconnected his world from him. This is part of the reason I get some of this behavior out here, is because parents have made some decisions as to how they're going to restrict their children without understanding where the blowback is, where they're participating. And this is part of that blowback. That disruptive behavior is part of that blowback. So I just wanted to say again, JF, I thank you for your comments. If you have any questions or comments relative to what I'm saying, you can come in at 919-518-9773 at Nissan Communications, or at Computers 2K Voice via Skype, or you can post in on the chat roll on the side at Blab. So I was not speaking therapeutic intervention to this family. I was giving them an invitation that they can come here and they could learn some more information, because this young boy's in high school. He has a sibling that is not in middle school yet. So the parents could benefit from this shortcoming to learn on what they may want to do with their female sibling, with their female child, or not. It was very difficult for me. I pray that Sri Baba said that I pray the parents are concerned enough to take action. And I don't want this to sound judgmental. I don't want this to sound judgmental. My impression after walking out of that home was that they want to make arrangements for this child to be dropped off at the psychologist and at the psychiatrist and the therapist, them tell him what they need to do, and he needs to listen and obey as to what he needs to do. And they are not necessarily committed to what their role in parenting could change. Because they were urgently moving to get me out of this house because they needed to take the steps to get ready to go out to another fundraising event. In the midst of all of this, that was more important for them as to have the people coming and getting them prepared for their dress and their makeup to go out to this event. So that's a hope. That's a hope. I offered that I would be available based upon what's happening with the psychiatrist and the psychologist to help them navigate the lessons as to what may be appropriate levels of steps. I have always been a proponent of when your child is in this space and they make those decisions, that you don't disconnect them from the umbilical cord of their real world. Their real world it's not real, but it's up for us to still let them have that attachment to what's happening out there, but in a more secured, overseen type of way. Yanking them off of the internet or taking their devices away has such negative consequences. And you don't have to believe me for that. You can read that in the news. I talked about on Monday about nomophobia. Now let's go there. So I was talking about the evidence. The evidence was all of these. It sounds like his activities may be illegal, albeit you don't actually know that. There was an area, JF, that this is a difficult path. This is a very difficult path because I am not a mandated reporter. It's not my job. And I saw things that were indicative to me of danger. But we're talking total family disruptive life. If some of that stuff is illegal, that is not up for me to report the legality or illegality of that. That is up to law enforcement to see if something illegal is happening, execute, have a basis in which warrants would be requested. There'd have to be evidence. I didn't have evidence. I had seen what I saw, but I am not a mandated reporter. And I saw things that I saw triggers that shows that I didn't want to see that. Because had I seen that, and if I saw something that verified it, that would have put me in a very compromising position that I would have been torn as to how do I handle that knowledge. Now, if I had seen something that was absolutely illegal, evidentiary of illegal, I would have called the police. I would have called the police that I'm in a bad spot here. I'm sorry, you have got stuff on here that needs to be reported to the law. But I chose not to go down that path and do the investigation to see. Yes, I had that. So somebody asked, do the parents understand that? I had a conversation with the parents that talked about privacy and the law and terms of service. The child was not even, somebody asked how receptive was the child to my conversation. The child was not present most of that conversation. The child was not present. So it's a very difficult issue for me emotionally and for me morally, and then there's a justice piece in there as well, that people could accuse me that I turned a blind eye, and I could fall prey and be held accountable and judged for turning a blind eye. Absolutely. I have to worry about my life. I can't worry about everybody else's life. I've got a lot of lives that are in my influence, and it can get very sticky. It can totally get sticky. And I'm not above making a wrong decision. I am not. But these are not my decisions to make. I don't own this. I am involved, but I don't own it. Parents own it. Parents totally own it. So I put the burden on the parents where I firmly believe it rests. And they can choose to ignore it. That's on them. Or it can become in the light and then it can become a legal issue. So where I wanted to transition from this, what I was talking about here was evidence. What we saw was evidence. We saw files, we saw an expanding video, we saw a data pipe that was getting bigger and bigger, monthly expenses going through the roof. That is evidence that something is going on. Something is going on. To what degree, good or bad, I have no idea, but something huge is going on. This particular family had mountains of evidence, but they chose, for whatever reason, to keep their blinders on, to not identify what that evidence was. And I pray they go down that journey and look at it. I told them I'm not looking at their evidence. They got to look at their own evidence. So I want to talk about the symptoms that are precursors to set off a trigger to a parent that the evidence is going to start manifesting itself. So let me talk about some other kinds of evidence before I talk about the symptoms. So another form of evidence would be holes or destructive things happening in your home or in a bedroom. A hole in a piece of drywall or a hole in a door. That's evidence. Furniture being broken. That's evidence. Language changing. So if you're in a household that profanity is normal, you're not going to be able to pick up on a change on language. But if you're in a household that doesn't normally have profanity and the child starts increasing the frequency of the profanity, that should be putting a trigger. Yes, it could be attributed to what's happening in the school with the peer groups and what that communication is like, to be part of the in crowd, that this is now you're testing out this new language. But that's a tell sign that something else is happening. Now, the other symptoms that we'll talk about, I want to say that I don't want to tell you the symptoms to shock you. I don't want to tell you the symptoms to alarm you. I just want to paint a picture of the reality that is not my perception, that this is the data that's coming from my researching, having the conversations with those in social services, with those in the psychiatric and therapeutic field, the psychiatrists and psychologists, and others in the law enforcement. So this is me sharing what others say. I'm going to put my own little flair on it, but this is the foundation of where this is coming from. Please bear in mind, this is not judgmental. This is just, I'm just telling you, this is what you can expect. So I think I've mentioned this before, the term nomophobia, that the relationship between your child and the technology is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. That the ability to separate your child from the technology gets more and more difficult. That they're holding on to it, and the care and their attention to that digital pathway is greater than that of a pet. So that the cat litter box could go without being changed, or the dog being fed and watered or taken out to do his business. That will be way, way down. Then you're going to see a migration away from a public environment. So in your home, maybe your child is with you, but when they get connected to the digital connection, they start to create distance between you and them. So maybe you're all together in one family room or something, enjoying each other's company, doing whatever you do after hours. But then the child's distance, and they go to a different area. They're going to stay on the same floor, maybe. Maybe you'll be in the family room, they'll be in the kitchen. But then that child's going to stretch the boundaries until they can get into that room. Now, why are they doing that? They're doing that so that they can have a sense of privacy and shielding from you what is happening in their digital experience. Because that separation is because they don't want you part of that world. And when you allow that separation, you're giving them permission for them to set up their expectation of privacy. Unfortunately, please keep in mind, there's no judgment in anything I'm saying. I don't want anybody's emotions to start saying, oh my gosh, I'm a bad parent, I'm a bad parent, because I'm not saying any of that. I had to say that very repeatedly on my Monday message, because that is, yes, JF, it is their secret life. That this is not judgment. When you're feeling these things, and if you're noticing some of these symptoms or this evidence, I'm not saying you're a bad parent. I'm saying you're doing the best you can with what you have based upon what you know. Good job. Good job. And then I'm trying to help you to see certain things that you can take action in advance, as opposed to suffering. What this family I'm dealing with is massive amounts of money that they're going to be spending to rehabilitate their child and still not know how to navigate back to. I'm trying to speak into before that gets out of control. So non-judgment. If you're feeling critical, it's not because of me. Get your critic out of the conversation, because I'm speaking truth and love. So when they start creating that distance, they're separating from you and isolating their internet reality from their real reality. Now, here as a parent, I want to tell you that there is no privacy. You've heard me talk about this. There is no privacy when you've clicked these I agree terms, the terms of service. There is no privacy. So the child is participating in a very public manner, very public, that anybody and everybody can see it. However, the person that they don't want to see it are their parents. So that the privacy that they want is not from the world, it's the privacy from the parents. And unfortunately, that's an unfair expectation or a responsibility to put in a child's hand. If they're willing to be public about it, about everybody else, you're part of the everybody else, and you have a more important relationship than the rest of the world does to your child. So they should not be able to block you out from what they're doing in the public world. Now that sounds judgment, but I'm saying please don't see that as judgment. That you have the ability to give your child the perception of their privacy, but that goes back to my conversation of oversight. I would invite people to listen to that broadcast so they can see that is the primary domain that we should all tune into and make our own decisions based upon a relationship with our children, as to what reality does exist for our children on the internet. Not the reality, that the picture that we paint that doesn't have any evidence behind it, but what is the reality of their viewed. I appreciate that, JF. He was saying it's not judgment, it's a truism. And that's my goal, is I don't want to have anybody perceive my words as being judgment, because I am not. I'm here as wanting to be the guy that says, I want to help you to help yourselves, to help your children be safe on what we all know is the reality of what's going out there. There is no morals and ethics in the social media world. Everything is a lie. Everything is a lie. Truth is an unknown anymore. It's undefinable. So I'm trying to provide parents resources that they can consume at their own pace, wherever their children are, to help them proactively. So I appreciate the folks commenting. Any comments or questions that you want to come in from Nissan, they can come in at 919-518-9773 or via Skype at Computers2K Voice. I don't know if anybody's over in the blab commenting or not, because I cannot see that, unfortunately. Ryan, the harsh reality is many parents don't want that responsibility.
Ryan?
Yes, sir.
There's Jack who says on Blab, hi Ryan, can't stay but wanted to say hello, have company coming for dinner.
For some reason, the audio got interrupted on what you were saying, Amnon. I didn't hear that clearly.
Jack, never mind, it's not a question. Keep going.
Okay. I think I know Jack. Jack has been in some of my other broadcasts too, if it's the same Jack 4888. So, and he has a very powerful story. Actually, I am going to have a ask Jack to have a conversation with me in Blab, because he has a very powerful story that is very relevant to the topics that I've been talking about this week, today, tonight, and now. Very powerful story, and he has said that he would do that. So not appropriate tonight, but Jack, thank you for coming in tonight. I really appreciate it. These symptoms I talk about, the nomophobia, the attachment to the phone gets very, very tight. You have this migration of distance, the separation from one environment into another environment, to all of a sudden the child is in their own bedroom with the electronics overnight, with no visibility as to whether they are on or off of that internet. And they may be doing things outside of your visibility, that they're doing a live streaming sleepover on many platforms. And that's when I've done those presentations, I've demonstrated that that is what is happening. And I've shown parents in the audience that their child is doing these kinds of things. So we have that separation. Then we have the tell sign of the language. Now I'm going to cross over into something that is symptom and a hybrid evidence. So when a child starts to experience some of this nasty activity that's behind my curtain, they're going to withdraw from you, and then they are going to in turn take some of that pain that they're feeling, and to make that pain go away, they're going to start reproducing some of that behavior, and it just gets ratcheted up. And then this pain that they're starting to get gets heavier, their activity gets more vocal. But then there's something else that comes in. And this is the other epidemic that's in schools. So we know that cyberbullying is an epidemic in schools. We know sexting is an epidemic in schools. But what else is an epidemic inside schools? What else are middle school, heavily in the middle school environment? The 6th, 7th, 8th grade, whatever your middle school is, 6 to 9 or 6, 7 to 8, whatever that is. There's another thing that is an epidemic in schools. And some parents aren't even aware of this, but the schools see it all the time because that's where it's happening. And it's called cutting. Bullying is very evident. Roanna said that bullying, cyberbullying is, I'm going to lump them together. Cyberbullying, sexting, those are the two things that are heavy into the digital domain that are happening epidemic-wide. But the next thing is the physical harm that children are taking upon themselves. And it starts out very simply that they take off a pen cap from a Bic pen and they just start repeatedly scratching on their skin. Starts out very small until that scrape turns into a welt, until that welt turns into it's bleeding. But they're going to do it in areas that are not visible to the parents because they're not going to reveal that. And then the implement changes. It changes from the cap of a Bic pen, that it changes to a staple on a packet in school. Then it changes from a stapler to a paper clip. Then it changes to something like a broken razor blade. And this is not just one cut. This is cuts that are reopened and cuts that are reopened. And they're happening all over parts of the body where the parents don't see it. They're doing it in the school, they're doing it in the classroom, they're doing it in the cafeteria, they're doing it in the gymnasium, they're doing it in the bathroom. The teachers know it, they see it, they try to intervene. Other kids know it. It's like this known cone of silence on this behavior. And your child has gotten to that point already that they've said, I'm private. I've moved away from being close to you. I've connected myself to this technology. I'm immersing myself in this technology. There was a strange pure challenge to use an eraser on one's hand. Yes, there's one of my listeners said that when they were in school that there was other types of harm activities that kids would do. And that happens to this day. There are those challenges where kids are doing it. They're doing it on live stream, for heaven's sakes. I mean, I've told people on various broadcasts the stupid things that kids are doing for harm to get internet famous. Vines, the challenges that happen on Vines. The most common one is the ice cube with the salt, and to see if you can stand it while you're burning your flesh. You have these ghost pepper challenges where kids are vomiting and their mucus glands are on hyper overload. Robbie, everyone is exposed to the internet now. That is very true. Everyone is exposed. But it's so I'm talking about this progression. So the child is moved away from proximity. Somebody was asking what Vine is. Vine is another platform where people can record a 6-second video and put it up on this social media platform that everybody can scroll through and see all these 6-second videos. Very, very popular application for kids, and adults use it too. It is like YouTube, but just very short videos. Very, very good. So one of my listeners just responded in another context to explain Vine. So this distance is increasing. The separation is happening. And when the child is off in their own with no supervision or oversight as to what they're doing in their room, not only are they digitally immersed, they're being digitally influenced because of the bidirectional communication. But there's other activities that could be happening too, and that is the self-harm. So what I'm saying, the another thing which is a symptom and / evidence is the cutting. But now I'm going to take it another step further, which I really don't like to do. The next step further is when that is gone on for so long, not in check, that this behavior is being absorbed and not repelled. When they're exhibiting this behavior and it's not governed, there's all this psychological trauma happening inside of a child, and they're looking for help. They're screaming for help. They're screaming for help. And when I first started my broadcast on Nissan Communications, I was in the middle of dealing with something that a child was screaming for help and nobody heard. And that nobody heard this child to the point where the child couldn't take it anymore, and that self-harm wasn't enough, that they chose to leave this earth. They chose to be done with it. And I'm not making any suggestions. I'm not drawing any connections. I'm just pointing out the steps, the signs, the triggers for parents to be aware that when this starts happening, it's a short step between each one of those steps. It's just one little step. And that each step that is taken, absent of a parent stepping in, I have somebody commenting on this in the Periscope. I don't know if Robbie is aware. I've got multiple broadcasts going on right now, but I'm going to respond to that. Robbie, who I don't know how old you are. Robbie, can you tell me how old you are so I can get some context as I respond to your statement? 18. So Robbie has made a comment that he says he blames the parents for not having the oversight or the control over their children. So here's an 18-year-old child. Don't misunderstand me. That to me, you could be my son. So an 18-year-old young man who is making a perception that this is a parent issue and it's not a child issue, that the parents are not keeping an eye on the kid. Okay, good deal. So, and I will say that this is a parental responsibility in relation to their relationship to the child, but it is only parental responsibility to the point that the parents have an objective desired outcome for the child. And I am here to suggest that most parents want their children to have a better life than what they had. I believe that's a true statement, that the stuff that I experienced in my life as a child, I would like my daughter to have a better experience than I did. I didn't have a bad experience, had some trauma in there, but I would like to have my daughter prepared when she goes out of my house that she will be better equipped than I was. And I believe my wife and I are consistent with that. And we want to speak into her, raise her, inform her for her to be equipped. That's just us. I'm saying some people have very logical, planned out steps for their child for when they're going, that it's all mapped out. Yes, I have read that. Not related to what I'm talking about at the moment, though. Some parents have that very logically planned out. Other parents there is no plan, and they'll just let it go the way it's going to go. This is not a judgment issue. This is if you are part of that plan and you see the society and the internet as an influence on that objective plan, I have the ability to assist you with how you navigate that journey. Because we can only know what we know. It's not possible to know what we don't know. Double-edged sword for parents. Make money, support family, and technology and learning. It is a double-edged sword, Roanna. It is a double-edged sword. So I'm coming to the end of my show. I really appreciate people coming in tonight. Great comments that came in from Periscope. Appreciate you guys supporting this message and the value that you bring to the conversation. I would strongly encourage, if people did not, on Periscope or Blab, I did have a conversation on Blab this week about oversight, but if you did not hear my message on oversight, I would be more than pleased to send you a free link to that video. It's about an hour long, and it hits in the core, and it comes from love and not from judgment about what oversight looks like. So if you are interested in receiving that, you can, one in Periscope, just type in the number 1. I will send you that link via Twitter. And I'm not the best presenter, but I was very passionate about this topic, and to me, it is the most critical one. I appreciate everything else that was happening on the internet on Safe Internet Day and those bringing awareness to all of those things out there. But for this particular one, this is where the rubber hits the road for the parents, because awareness is important, but absent of your oversight as to what you put in your kids' hands, we have no basis to make a truthful statement as to what they are doing on the internet, what that experience is. It's like trust but verify, but there's no verification going on. We don't see what they're doing, saying, sharing, liking, commenting on. This parent that I was involved with today, they had no visibility into what they were doing, absolutely none. And they have volumes of stuff. Now, I don't know what their commitment level is to explore what their child has been doing. Honestly, I could see them being quite fearful to open up that door to see what might be inside of there. I used an analogy earlier today. It's like holding a BB gun, putting the BB gun for your 9-year-old son. You go away, you come back, you look out back, and there's dead birds and squirrels all over the place. But over in the corner is a pile of birds and squirrels that the child has dissected them and pulled the veins out of them. What do we have? We don't know, because we didn't look. We need to look. We need to see. I'm not suggesting your child is eviscerating animals, but I am suggesting we don't know what's happening on the internet, absent of our eyes seeing it. So I'm going to wrap it up tonight. Thank you all for joining. Thank you for my Periscope audience. Thank you for joining me on Blab. And thank you for Nissan and Amnon and his continued support of Parent Dome. And everybody have a delightful weekend. I am not broadcasting tomorrow because tomorrow's Saturday, and you guys in Periscope know what I do on Saturday mornings. So thank you so much, and have an awesome night.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, My Life, My Will with Gisela DiCarlo, The Tanya Love Show, Health Then with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Triangle Be Well with Howard Jacobson, Lunch and Learn with Rabbi Yisrael Cutler, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, Parent Dome with Ryan Miller, Current Affairs with Amnon Nissan. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.